In this video, we'll have a look at how to import a bank statement into Shintaro. Shintaro allows us to download bank statements directly from our bank's website and import them directly against our tenancies. The way this works is through matching the payment book ID. In the tenancy screen, there's a field for the payment book ID. Let's go and have a look at Andrew Rankin's tenancy screen. So we find the payment book ID here, and if we have text in this field, this should match the text that the bank puts on the bank statement or the reference that the tenant uses when they pay their rent to the bank. So from the home screen, to import a bank statement into Shintaro, we go into Finance, and then into Bank Functions. And whenever we import bank files, we always use the multi-bank processing form. There are 5 steps to this process, and they are listed down here from 1 to 5. The first step is to select the file to import. So we have downloaded the file from the bank's website, and we've saved that somewhere on our server. We click the ellipsis, and we find the file. The next thing that we do is select the bank account from which we want to import. Centrepay may be the default, or another bank may be the default, so you'll choose the correct bank account from the drop-down list. In this example, we'll be using the generic CSV file because this is just a demo and we're using the CSV format. You will have one or more banks in your drop-down list that have been set up by your system administrator, and you'll choose the correct one. So once we've selected the bank account, the next step is to import the file. When we click on Import, Shintaro brings the file into this screen and matches the payments accordingly. All of the lines now on this screen were lines that were in the bank statement, and we have imported them into this work area. So we can prepare and make any corrections before we actually allocate these payments to the tenancies. Now, let's have a look at what's on this screen. The information on the left-hand side is what was in the bank statement. We can see the date of the transaction, the amount of the transaction, and the reference number on the file. Notice the description of the payment is the payment book ID from the tenancy record. On the right-hand side, we can see where Shintaro has matched the payment book ID with the correct tenant. We see Fred Mockingbird's name here, and if we click his name and click on the grey arrow, this list will show us Fred's name and the matching payment book ID of CHA02. Where we see examples where there is no match, we need to find out who that payment belongs to. We can see here that someone has made a payment of $84.12 and they have put their payment book ID as CHA007, but we know that we don't have this number listed. So there may be a mistake with the payment book ID. We need to figure out now who this payment is for. In this demo, I know that this would be for someone who lives at the Challenger Surfboard Factory because all of the payments at that address start with CHA. So we can pick the correct tenant by dropping this list down. And here we can see that Jeremy Finer's payment book ID is CHA07, so this is his payment. We select his name from this list. And we would do the same for other payment book ID numbers where the name is blank and allocate the correct tenant. If we can't work out who that payment belongs to, we can leave this for now, process all others, and come back to this through our bank accounts. Notice that one of these payments is not a rent payment. This is because it is a payment out of our account, not a deposit into our account, and Shintaro says this is not a rent payment. If we were to see something here that is not a rent payment, we could allocate not a rent payment from the drop-down list. Over on the right-hand side, similar to Centerpay, there is a rent component, and any splits that we have set up for these tenants will appear in these columns with the amount here as we saw in the Centerpay example. In this case, we don't have any splits set up, so we don't see any other amounts. Over on the right, we have the Generate Credit box. If this box is ticked, then the transaction will be credited against that tenancy. So now we've completed step 4 by selecting the correct tenancies, and we've marked all records that will generate a rent payment. Once we're happy that we have allocated all that we can for the moment, we can select Generate Payments and Transfer to Bank Account. We now get the message that 3 rent payments, 0 other credits, 0 bond, and 0 property fee transactions generated. All transactions have been copied to the bank account. Now, when we go into Jeremy Finer's tenancy, we can see that payment has been processed on his tenancy transactions ledger. If we want to have a look at the transactions in the bank account, we go into the home screen, into Finance, Bank Functions, and View Bank Account. We first select the correct bank account, in this case generic CSV. Here we can see the transactions that we just processed. When we have a look at the manual bank processing e-learning video, we'll look at how to assign payments that have not been allocated to a tenancy yet.